Before the Pilgrims ever landed at Plymouth Rock, before Jamestown settlers built their stockades, and centuries before the ink dried on the Declaration of Independence, a fierce rebellion shook the foundations of the first European colony in what would become the United States. In the autumn of 1526, nearly 500 years ago, a group of enslaved Africans ignited the earliest known rebellion against slavery on North American soil, an uprising that not only challenged Spanish colonial ambitions, but also forged an early alliance with indigenous peoples in a forgotten moment of revolutionary resistance. This took place at the short-lived Spanish settlement of San Miguel de Gualdape, likely located along the banks of the PD River in what is now South Carolina or Georgia. Though the colony barely survived 6 weeks, its impact resonates through the centuries. The mastermind behind the San Miguel colony was Lucas Vázquez de Ayllón, a Spanish magistrate, slaver, and explorer who had long been eyeing the lush southeastern coast of North America. Ayllón was no stranger to conquest. In 1521, he had sent expeditions north from Hispaniola in search of wealth and new lands for the Spanish crown. During one of those early voyages, his men had kidnapped dozens of indigenous people from the region, an ominous foreshadowing of the brutal policies he would later implement. In 1523, King Charles V granted Ayllón a royal patent to claim and colonize the land, envisioning a Nueva Andalucía, a prosperous new Spanish province in the north. With dreams of empire and riches, Ayllón set sail in June of 1526 with a fleet of 6 ships carrying between 600 and 700 people, including priests, soldiers, craftsmen, women, children, and approximately 100 enslaved Africans, the first documented arrival of Africans to what is now the U.S. mainland. These Africans were likely taken from the West African coast, regions such as Senegambia, Sierra Leone, or the Kingdom of Congo, and may have passed through Spanish-controlled ports in the Caribbean, where the slave trade was already flourishing. From the moment the expedition made landfall near present-day Georgia, misfortune plagued them. Ayllón initially attempted to settle further north, but was forced to retreat south due to storms, poor anchorage, and resistance from local indigenous groups. Disease quickly began to spread aboard the ships. Livestock died, supplies dwindled, and as the expedition stumbled further south along the coast, the brutal southern summer, oppressive heat, clouds of biting insects, and thick forests began to exact a heavy toll. Eventually, Ayllón established the colony of San Miguel de Gualdape on September 29, 1526, with religious ceremonies and symbolic land claims. But behind the pomp and hope lay a grim reality. The settlement was isolated, under-provisioned, and racked by internal dissent. Settlers argued, disease spread, and tensions with local Gual peoples, who resisted the Spaniards' attempts at control, escalated. But the most volatile pressure came from within, the enslaved Africans, who had been brought not as settlers, but as laborers and property. Facing unbearable conditions and a crumbling social order, they saw a rare and dangerous opportunity. In mid to late October 1526, as the colony neared collapse, the enslaved Africans rose in open rebellion. Details are scarce, but accounts describe how they burned buildings, sabotaged supplies, and fled into the surrounding wilderness, sparking terror among the colonists. This act wasn't just a rebellion, it was a strategic escape, and an early declaration of autonomy. Many of the escapees are believed to have joined forces with nearby indigenous nations, most likely the Gual, who had also suffered under Spanish intrusion. This moment marks one of the earliest recorded alliances between Africans and Native Americans on this land, foreshadowing the maroon societies that would form in swamps, mountains, and forests throughout the Americas over the coming centuries. Just days after the rebellion, on October 18, 1526, Lucas Vázquez de Ayllón died, likely from disease, though some historians speculate stress, infection, or even poisoning may have played a role. Leaderless and demoralized, the colony descended into chaos. By November, fewer than 150 survivors remained. They abandoned San Miguel, torched what was left, and sailed back to Hispaniola, defeated. The enslaved Africans who had escaped into the forests were never recaptured. Their fate remains largely unknown, but many historians believe they were welcomed into indigenous societies, blending cultures, traditions, and bloodlines in one of the earliest acts of resistance and survival on what would become American soil. San Miguel de Gualdape faded into obscurity, overshadowed by later colonial ventures like Roanoke 1585 and Jamestown 1607. But this 1526 uprising is a powerful reminder that the first fights for freedom in America did not begin in 1776, nor were they led by men in powdered wigs and breeches. They were led by enslaved Africans, stolen from their homelands and thrust into the chaos of empire, and by native peoples, defending their lands and lives from foreign domination. Their story challenges the foundations of the traditional American narrative. It tells us that the soil of this country was marked by resistance from its very first contact with European colonizers. This was not just a footnote. This was the first freedom struggle, a testament to the unbreakable will of people determined to define their own fate, long before the word America ever existed. At A History in Color, we bring these stories out of the shadows, vivid, bold, and unfiltered. Because Black history didn't begin in chains. It began in courage, in rebellion, in survival. Until next time, keep digging deeper. Keep coloring in the past.